Hi, today I'm going to be making a strategy guide to the game of Catan. We're going to try to find you some simple ways to win at Catan and to avoid some pitfalls that a lot of people fall into. First, if you see here, I've got the base game of Catan, also with the Cities and Knights expansion pack and the Seafarers as well. I'm going to assume for the purpose of this video that you understand all the rules to all three of those expansions. Now, before I start, I'll tell you that I realize that the base game has a rule of how you set up your number tokens, but that falls apart when you add seafarers because the islands aren't always standard, so you can make those any shape that you want. And so I try to set up the number tokens where none of the numbers are touching each other, and then also that the resources are kind of evenly spread out with the probability there. First, we're going to be talking about the placement of your cities and settlements. You can do this in a good way and highly increase the probability that you'll win the game in the end. What you want to pay attention to here is that the dots at the bottom of the number cards, as you know, indicate the probability that that number will be rolled. And so when in placement, really the most important thing that you can do is pick a spot that has a high dot count. If you see here, the brown team has picked an 8, a 9, and a 10. It has a combination dot count of 12. That's about as good as you're going to get unless you happen to find a spot that has a 5, a 9, and an 8. Those aren't very common, and sometimes it means that your board hadn't been set up very well, but usually 12, 13 is the max. As 11 would be alright, but that's about the number count that you're going to find that would make it for a good spot. If you can get 2 of those to begin the game, you've done really good things. If you see, the brown has picked 3 different resource tokens, and they all have high dot counts. It's a good first spot. Over here, the red team has done something similar. It's got a 3 there, which I'm not thrilled about, but that's not too bad. Now the blue is kind of taking 2 weak points here with the 11 and the 3. You kind of want to avoid that if possible with your very first settlement, but sometimes depending on how many players you're playing against and the size of the board, you might get stuck with a scenario like that. Now with placement with your city, it's always good to try to find something that will produce commodities. That's not always possible. Sometimes those things are gone early on, but here the brown team has made sure that it's got both the ore covered and the brick covered, which it didn't have in its original placement. It's doubled up on the wheat on a 3. That's not so bad because of your second placement, and then you've got 9 covering that resource as well. So you got all the resources covered. You can connect them if you want. One of the things that I find is the most important besides placement is the expansion spots. Now, you see Brown's got this whole top part of the board for himself. That's really awesome. That doesn't always happen out that way, but he's got this expansion spot, which is 2 roads that get you to this port city with a 9 and a 5. That really is ideal because you've maximized the resource usage, and just having to build 2 roads, you don't ever want to have to plan on building 3 or 4 roads to get to an expansion spot. That's really wasteful of your resources. And then having a good dot count and a port really helps out there as well. Now, a couple of weaknesses in the placement of the red. Here you see they've doubled up on a tile. Now, a 3 is not that bad because most time people don't put robbers on a 3. But if that was anything else, that robber's going to go on that spot all the time because he can knock out that player's capability on 2 different levels there. Another weakness that he's got is he's got built on both the 6s, which that's putting all your eggs in one basket. So you're either going to hit that a lot or you're going to hit 8s, which are equally probable, and end up with not getting any resources. If you remember, the strategy there is you want to get resources on every turn, and so ideally you'd be like the brown. You've had 1 on the 6 and 1 on the 8. That really helps you out. See, blue's done the same thing. They've doubled up on 8s, which is not the end of the world, but if you're strategizing, you have an opportunity to take a 6 instead of an 8. That was much better. In fact, this might have been a better starting position for the blue. He's got a 6 now and an 8, and he can have an awesome expansion spot to get to this 8-4, which is protected from the red and the brown, who might have easily tried to expand to that spot. and now they can't get down this far. The blue has an open road to get to that. A couple of other things I want to talk about real quick. Unless you're playing a long game, if you're playing something that's more than 16 victory points, you really can just stay on an island. An island this size, especially with 3 players, there's no real need to expand except for maybe a victory move where you try to expand and get that extra victory point on a nearby island and try to end the game at the very end there. But you spend so many resources, especially over to islands like this, where you just want to forget about that, leave that alone. You'd spend so many resources and so much time to get over there that wouldn't really be able to produce by the time that the game was over. So if you're able to stay on the island and build all your settlements and all your cities here and really kind of dominate the island, maybe even block off access from the other players to get out there and garner as many resources as you can, it's really going to increase the probability that you'll win. A couple of the things that you want to avoid is spending too much time on trying to get commodities to advance here. See, that first one's not bad at all. In fact, I'd make a early sacrifice in the game to try to advance all those to one spot to turn in an ore, paper, and a cloth. But really, unless you're playing a long game again, really investing a lot in to get a metropolis is kind of pointless because they don't produce more points. Now, sometimes you might get lucky and get some really good cards out of that, but it doesn't always work out for you. If you're playing a 15 or 14 point game, you want to end quick through building and make sure that you utilize all of your cities and settlements. I hope that's helped you with some basic strategy on the game. Again, try to stay close, build a lot, and utilize your resources in an effective manner. Appreciate your time. Thank you.